Introduction. Modern content marketing is about more than just choosing the right keywords. Marketers are using embeddings, numerical vector representations of text, to map the meaning of all their articles and topics. In simple terms, an embedding turns each sentence or document into a list of numbers that machines can compare. This lets us see which articles are similar in topic or intent, even if they don't use the same words. For example, in today's search landscape, Google's AI systems, like MUM and Gemini, use embeddings to understand the context and intent behind queries. By leveraging embeddings, marketers can plot their content in a topic space and spot clusters of related ideas. This approach reveals how well a content library covers different themes and where the blind spots are. What are embeddings and why they matter? An embedding is essentially a list of numbers that captures the meaning of some text. You can think of it as placing each article or topic on a point in a very high-dimensional space. Articles about similar concepts end up close together. This allows tools to cluster the text by theme or intent. Research shows that modern embedding models, like BERT, GPT, or other transformer-based models, produce much better clusters than older methods. For example, one study found that BERT embeddings outperform traditional TF-IDF word frequency vectors in text clustering on 28 out of 36 metrics. In other words, embeddings do a better job of grouping related content without manual labels. Since embeddings capture nuance and context, they're perfect for marketers who want to move beyond simple keyword lists. According to one SEO glossary, today's vector-based systems interpret semantic similarity rather than exact keyword matches. This means embeddings help identify the real intent and topic behind content. By using embeddings, you align your strategy with how search engines and AI understand language, focusing on concepts and entities instead of just repeated words. Mapping content by theme and intent. Once you can represent all your content and your competitors' content as embeddings, the next step is to cluster them. Clustering means grouping together pages or topics that share similar meaning. A good approach is to compute an embedding for each document or key topic, then use a similarity threshold so that each cluster has a handful of related topics. For example, software that audits content often uses sentence embeddings and then groups topics so that each cluster contains about 5 to 15 items. This semantic clustering reveals the landscape of your coverage. Each cluster should form a coherent theme from the reader's perspective. As one marketing methodology explains, you can form clusters that match how buyers think, not how your CMS tags pages. That means group pages by real user intent and topic, not just whatever categories existed before. In practice, you might seed clusters around major product areas and then attach related subtopics by closeness in the embedding space. Clustering also works across your own site and your competitors. In fact, content gap analysis often involves finding topics competitors cover, but you don't. By embedding your articles and top competitor pages in the same vector space, you can see which clusters competitors occupy that are missing from your map. As Ahrefs notes, a true content gap analysis is the process of finding topics your competitors have covered, but you haven't. In other words, overlaying competitor embeddings onto your content map highlights unfilled areas. Technically, you have many tools and models available for this. Clustering often uses models like BERT, KeyBERT, or BERTopic, all of which rely on embeddings to automatically detect topic groups. For example, BERTopic combines transformer embeddings with clustering algorithms to find coherent themes. By using these advanced models, you let a machine read your content corpus and find patterns that humans might miss. Combining clusters with demand signals. Mapping topic clusters is only half the picture. To find the highest impact gaps, you should compare these clusters against real demand signals. Common signals include search volume, support queries, and social media trends. Search volume. Tools like Google Keyword Planner measure how many people search for each topic. High search volume indicates a topic many users care about. In practice, SEO pros often filter out very low-volume topics, for example, ignoring keywords with fewer than 20 searches per month. By checking the search volume for the keywords or phrases in each cluster, you can gauge audience interest. If a cluster contains queries with thousands of monthly searches, it's likely worth covering fully. In short, search volume acts as a demand meter. Support and knowledge-based data. Customer support teams know what questions users really have. Zendesk notes that support teams know the most about customer issues and the best way to solve them. which is why their help center organizes FAQs and product details. By analyzing support tickets or help center searches, you can identify common user problems. If a cluster aligns with frequent support questions, that signals a gap. Users want help on that topic but may not find it on your site. Treat these support topics as strong clues for needed content. Social mentions and listening. Social media is another window into audience interest. Hootsuite explains that tracking social mentions can surface trends, competitive insights, and product feedback that manual monitoring would miss. In practice, look for hashtags, forums, and comments related to each cluster's theme. If people are talking about a topic on Twitter or LinkedIn and you have little content there, that's a gap. A spike in social chatter around a concept suggests you should fill it. By combining embeddings-based clusters with these demand signals, you pinpoint where high-interest topics lack coverage. For example, you might find a cluster labeled Using AI in Marketing that has high search queries and many mentions on social media, but your site only has one thin post on it. That's a high-impact gap. In short, search volume, support data, and social listening help you prioritize clusters by real audience demand. Identifying and prioritizing content gaps. After clustering and measuring demand, the goal is to find the gaps, topics that rank well in demand but have little coverage. One modern approach is exactly this, using embeddings to detect missing subtopics or intents. For example, a recent guide on AI-driven content gap analysis explicitly says to detect gaps with embeddings, using vector clustering to compare your coverage to the overall market's content graph. In practice, this means flagging clusters that your site barely covers but competitors or audience data highlight as important. Another way to think about gaps is via network analysis. InfoNotice, a content gap tool, visualizes keywords as a knowledge graph of connected topics. It then finds clusters that are weakly linked to others and suggests bridging them. The idea is that if a related concept link is missing, new content that bridges the gap will provide high informational gain. The tool's documentation explains that filling such a bridge, e.g., connecting keyword research and market analysis clusters, is likely to boost patient engagement because it adds new information searchers aren't seeing elsewhere. In short, look for clusters in your map that stand isolated or incomplete, and plan pieces that connect or expand them. Once gaps are identified, score and prioritize them. As Single Grain's framework advises, evaluate each gap by potential business impact and production effort. Estimate factors like possible traffic revenue, ranking difficulty, competition level, needed authority, and content length. Give higher priority to gaps with high demand and high value, but still feasible effort. Building a gap-focused content plan. Every identified gap should become a part of your content backlog. For each topic, write a clear brief guiding its creation. Single Grain suggests turning each prioritized gap into a brief that includes things like target entities, key concepts to cover, likely user questions, supporting data or example evidence, preferred content format, internal linking suggestions, schema needs, and a conversion goal. For example, if a gap topic is chatbots for customer support, a brief might list related questions, how to implement a chatbot, important points, integration with CRM, use cases, and suggest the format, e.g., a how-to guide. This structured brief ensures every gap item is well scoped, including questions and entities comes from the embeddings analysis, what terms naturally belong here, and from demand signals, what users actually ask. The brief communicates exactly what the content should achieve and which angle or asset, like a case study or tool, will make it unique. After creating briefs, plan them into your editorial calendar. Work down the prioritized list, starting with the gaps that promise the biggest gains. By scheduling these with any regular content, like monthly planning meetings, you establish an ongoing workflow. Over time, as you publish gap-targeted pieces, you continuously fill holes in your map. Ongoing embedding-based planning. This embedding-driven approach isn't a one-off project. It becomes part of your content strategy cycle. As you publish new content, generate embeddings for it, and update your clusters. Monitor results and tweak as needed. Single Grain recommends a cycle of testing and tuning. After publishing, optimize headlines, structure, and schema based on behavior, link acquisition, and whether you're winning citations or SERP features. In other words, treat analytics, traffic, time on page, backlinks as feedback to refine your content. With each iteration, the map of your content changes. New clusters may emerge as trends shift, and demand signals will evolve. Periodically rerun your embedding analysis on the updated corpus, including competitors' latest content to catch fresh gaps. Because embeddings capture meaning, they help reveal new or shifting topics faster than manual audits. Over time, you will have built a backlog of topic briefs and a repeatable AI-assisted workflow. The result is a data-driven content plan that continuously aligns your site with what audiences want. Conclusion: using embeddings to map your content brings a new level of insight to content strategy. By turning every article into a point in semantic space, marketers can cluster topics, compare coverage, and surface hidden gaps. When these clusters are overlaid with search demand, support data, and social buzz, it's straightforward to spot high-impact gaps. Each gap then becomes a targeted brief in the backlog, ensuring content development is guided by real audience need. This embedding-based process, from analysis to briefs to publishing, creates a dynamic, data-driven cycle. In the end, you not only visualize your topical coverage, but also lock in a workflow that constantly evolves your content to close gaps and win in the market. All links to sources are available in the text version of this article. You can find the full article at autopond.co.